Hello and welcome to Building High Performance Cultures, a weekly series where we talk with executives from top organizations about how they've built high performance cultures and how they're leveraging their culture as competitive advantage. I'm Marty Parker, the President and CEO of Waterstone Human Capital, and my guest today is the President and CEO of Galvanize, Laurie Schultz. Laurie, welcome to Building High Performance Cultures.
Great to see you, Marty. Thanks.
Great to see you, even though it's from a distance. I wish it were closer, but for another day. Now, Laurie was appointed as the CEO of Galvanize, then known as ACL, back, I think, in 2011, Laurie. And since then, he successfully repositioned the company to one of Canada's top 100 best managed employers. And, if I don't say so myself, a 2017 Canada's Most Admired Cultures Award winner. And today, the company enjoys top quad analyst recognition on a build, buy, rebrand formula, disrupting its category while profitably delivering high double-digit revenue growth. Laurie has built several multi-million-dollar software businesses spanning the personal finance, small business accounting, ERP, CRM, and GRC categories. She's transformed cultures, platforms, business models, and valuation by empowering change and relentlessly focusing on right critical few. And her efforts have been recognized. Laurie's received multiple leadership awards, including the 2019 EY Entrepreneur of the Year, Pacific Region in Technology, the 2019 Business in Vancouver CEO of the Year, and the WXN Canada's Most Powerful Women Top 100, most recently in 2019, entering her into the Hall of Fame. That's an incredible accomplishment. And these are just to name a few. But Laurie, why don't you start us off talking a little bit about Galvanize and the culture that you've been a part of building?
Thanks so much, Marty, for those kind words. It's great to be here. And it's so fun to talk about culture. I've been here 9 years, which is a long time to be at a tech company. And of course, Galvanize has been around a long time as well. We were born in the university system in 1972, before you and I were both born, well, barely. And we were commercialized in 1987. And as you mentioned, I joined in 2011. And the great, great invitation I was given was to transform this business with an emphasis on culture. My number one priority at the time was to actually fix our culture. As you know, many respects, having been around for so long, we'd kind of fallen asleep. We'd gotten good at the usual tricks, and because our category had matured, we're in dire need of some new ones. And so over the past 9 years now, we've transformed ourselves, we've transformed our category on a threefold agenda in order, focused on mobilizing talent, customer intensity, and business model transformation. And, you know, I like to emphasize that mobilizing talent has really been the enabler of all of our transformation, since as it's been anchored in having kind of the right value system and having folks pointed consistently against the right vision. We're not an easy place to work, but we're a great place for folks that want to change the world.
It's a great, a very great and kind of succinct story of what was a lot of work, I know, and continues to be. But as you kind of took on the challenge of transforming the culture, Laurie, and as you talked about really transforming talent and kind of breathing new life into the customer experience and the company's bottom line, how do you approach these large scale changes? And what I mean by that is, particularly when it comes to an organization like Galvanize is now, ACL then, had been around a few years. How do you do it?
You know, for anybody that walks into an organization that's established, I don't want to marginalize the effort, but it's actually quite simple. You ask people what they think. And you know the story, Marty. When I joined, I did 14 town halls, I think it was, in my first 2 weeks. I spoke to everybody and I just asked them quite simply and authentically, what's working, what's not working, what opportunities are we missing? And you know, the great thing around town halls, and I still do them today, in fact, I've got a couple this week, it's you are able to not only get great ideas, because of course our employees are very smart, but you get to see who can influence the room based on the integrity of their intent and the caliber of their ideas. And when I met ACL 9 years ago through those town halls, I learned literally in the first 2 weeks from employees what needed to change. And more importantly, I saw in the room who was going to lead that change. All I had to do was listen. All I had to do was notice. And maybe the hardest thing was I had to get obstacles out of the way and, give those folks some freedom to try their ideas out in the hallway.
Yeah, well, again, listening is a big part of it, but you then have to do it. What did you learn learn about the link, I should say, between corporate culture and organizational performance in this most recent change at Galvanize, and what really worked for you over time?
I'm so opinionated about this. I've had the opportunity to run a lot of software businesses.
Yep.
And even today we're getting courted by a lot of private equity, and just there's a lot of investment interest. Mm-hmm. One of the easiest things to do in the world as a new CEO, is to come in and financially re-engineer a business. You can lay people off, you can raise prices, you can do a few things to make your profit and loss statement look really good, really fast. But you can leave dead bodies all over the place. I was very, very lucky in that my invitation to join from the founder and from the board was really focused on culture. And the collective belief was that by getting the people formula right, they in turn will get the customer formula right. And you'll have pervasive financial results down the road. And I think that's the difference in the approach I was given the opportunity to take. It took longer, quite frankly, to get the culture formula right. And frankly, even to transform the customer experience. We transformed our technology to the cloud and our business model to subscription. Those are really, really hard to do. But they would have never have happened as impactfully had we not first got the people formula right. And so I'd say, the linkage between corporate culture and financial performance for me is the pervasiveness and the stickiness over time if you start with people.
Very good. Not only did you make a change, and you said it took time, but you rebranded the business, and that's no small task. How did you approach that and get buy-in from all stakeholders, team members, ownership, the leaders?
Yeah.
How did the culture help you through that process?
I love the life MBAs I've been able to get here. I've been parts of corporate rebrands, but not, in a leadership seat up until now. And we actually did that May of it feels like so long ago. It was just May of 2019 that we did that. That would have been my 8th year here. ACL is audit command language for the viewing audience here. It's not necessarily the sexiest acronym, but it became a mainstream household name with auditors around the world. We're in 130 countries today. So we had to be very careful. It was this great competitive asset, that brand, but it was also a liability because as we transformed our product, we, of course, our solution reaches now much farther than an auditor. And in fact, our auditors champion the use of our solution across the table into the CFO or Chief Information Officer and so on. So we actually quite carefully and with a very data-informed kind of route with a lot of, conversation, we took about a year actually to rebrand. We did research on the front end, starting with our customers. We asked for their feedback and frankly, they were one of the biggest advocates for us changing the brand because it was pigeonholing us. We had a rebrand committee, which included board members and our founder to make sure that, they felt brought along for the ride. And we had an awesome consulting group that put a lot of creative brands and visuals in front of us. So it was a very, very fun project. And, we took the time to make sure we had alignment and it just fits like a glove. Galvanize is a dual metaphor for what we do from a cultural perspective. We and our customers galvanize change. And if you understand the term scientifically, it's applying a protective coat to metal, and of course our customers protect their organizations from risk. So we're pretty happy with the brand.
Yeah, it's a great name, and it's neat when it has that kind of internal and external resonance, doesn't
Yes,
it?
yeah, that's right.
Now, Galvanize values, it really has the values of customer intensity, embracing ambiguity, and authenticity. But how do these show up in day-to-day operations? And how do you see these both in your efforts as CEO, but also across the team?
Well, my favorite is authenticity, and if we describe the meaning of it as it's being genuinely in the moment and listening to someone and receiving it the exact way it was delivered. It's stopping the censoring in your head so that you can really learn something from someone's opinion that you didn't otherwise know. And that leads into the embracing ambiguity, because by hearing and learning what you don't know, you're going to be in a position to do something that you've never done. I mean, that simple kind of language colors how we talk here. We measure our values on a bi-monthly basis. Actually, as part of our we have a bi-monthly survey. We have, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, we have symbols of our values. For example, we have a moose in every room. I should actually just find one in the room that I'm in here. A moose on the table for us at Galvanize is like an elephant in the corner of the room, which, it's that uncomfortable, awkward thing somebody wants to say. By being very frequent in how we talk about our values, in measuring our values and having symbols like the moose, they really have become a very, very big part of our culture and frankly, our transformation. I'll say, until this job, I probably actually never really appreciated the impact of symbols and language like I do today. And having a moose as a metaphor for the value of authenticity has been a really fundamental focal point for our culture.
And where did the moose come from?
I don't really know where that came. I mean, I brought it, perhaps I'd heard it sometime in the past, but of course we're Canadian, right, Marty? So we don't have many elephants, and it seemed like a moose on the table was a good.
I'll never forget when you told the story. I thought it was fabulous. Now, we read an interview last year where you talk about risk and getting comfortable with risk. As a leader, how have you grown in your ability to manage the whole idea of risk, and how do you coach team members at Galvanize on doing just that?
I think there's probably an element of personality. I think to some degree, risk is learned, and I think to some degree, a risk appetite you're born into. And I think the way to tickle that out of employees is to be as vulnerable as often as you can be with employees. We're very, very transparent in the kind of goals that we set. One example of a pretty big risk we took, it was in 2015, we transformed our business to subscription in 1 year. And that's no small feat with 6,000 customers in 130 countries. And we got in the hallways, we put that goal out there. We talked to folks around all of the things that we could do to maximize our ability to achieve that goal with 1 year. We had all of our dashboards dialed up so we could see how we're performing. We aligned our compensation systems. And then we communicated frequently, daily, weekly, monthly around how we were performing. Now, we always had a get out of jail free card or an emergency escape clause. We always knew what we'd do if it was a disaster for some reason. But front end loaded the goal in terms of its aggressiveness, and we surround sounded that with compensation systems and, in our case, a customer value proposition that didn't give us much room to miss. And then we just did it. And it worked. We converted 90% in 1 year. Now, we haven't always been so successful, and maybe I'll just throw out as it comes to mind here a bit of a contrast to that. 1 year we had a big goal around consumption of our product. It was called monthly active users. Actually, it was just with subscription, you need your customers to use it. It's the truth serum to state the obvious. So we were measuring consumption of our product, and we had bonused around this goal as well. And actually there's a mistake in actually how we were counting. And the day of bonus being announced on this great goal, an engineer discovered we were measuring it wrong. And so nobody in the company got bonused.
Wow.
And we practiced our value of authenticity, and we explained the mistake. We told everybody they weren't getting bonus, and it became a rallying cry for us around the value itself. At the end of the day, we were forgiven the mistake because the bravery of the person that brought up the mistake and the integrity of how we responded meant more to us than money in pockets. So we're willing to take risks. We're willing to make mistakes, and in all cases, we're very, very visible and transparent around how we're doing against them.
Those are great examples.
Thanks.
Now, Laurie, I know that you're a real champion for women in business, but also in science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEM, in other words. And we continue to hear about and live the vital importance of getting more women involved in STEM. But as someone who's been in the tech industry for most of your career, what advice would you give for STEM-focused organizations looking to develop cultures that support and encourage women into and to stay in these industries?
Marty, I don't think I've been as good as I can be around women in tech. And if I'm honest with you, it's, I started my journey in tech in 1989. That's how old I am. And I never wanted anyone to think that I'd got a free ride or any kind of special treatment because I was a female. And up until recently, I've been less vocal about it than I should have been. And I'm learning how to get better at making a bigger deal out of it, definitely in my own organization. And as we have a formal goal around gender diversity, we're actually this coming year debating expanding it to percent non-white male, if I can put it that way. It's probably a little controversial to put, but of course there's many groups that that should be included more broadly than they are. But I'll say just on the gender front, one thing that is been quite helpful for us as we set our own goal. Today, we are only 32% female in tech. Now that's a little higher than tech in general, but I know that 42% of my customers are female. And if you think about, the simplicity of the goal, but having an authentic goal line, it's been quite impactful for me to say, listen, there's no way we can possibly argue that we shouldn't be at least 42% female if that's what our customers demographic represents. So that's been a really important enabler of our own D&I goal there. And I suppose just other obvious things, we manage our recruitment to a pipeline target. Even things such as, our customer or employee conferences, being mindful about, what percent of people are speaking that are female or a different type of ethnic kind of background.
Yeah, well, it's certainly going to continue to be in the forefront, and there's no better time than the present. And I know that it's something that is on your mind, and appreciate you commenting on. So, what do you see as the future in terms of being critical to aligning your people at Galvanize to the culture and attracting new talent in order to continue to build this, and you do have one, high performance culture at Galvanize?
Mm-hmm. Well, our fiscal year end is July 31, so I'm being very reflective about our forward year's goals. And of course, the COVID-19 situation gives me all kinds of unique rear view mirror perspective. We have a great business. We've done really well, but nothing can be taken for granted. We're 500 employees today. We're the leader in our space. That's a right we need to earn every day. And yet there's so much change. And I'm preoccupied with a few things right now. Millennials, as a tech company, we have a lot of them. 2/3 of my employee population are millennials, yet 2/3 of my leaders are Gen X, and some on my board are baby boomers. So as I think about myself, I'm in a bit of a sandwich here, in that I report to a bit more of a traditional baby boomer type board, and I've got millennials that work for me and for us who are very self-actualized and who don't actually care about the typical stuff a board does. And so I think we should be very thoughtful about how to become better leaders for millennials, because it's not going to be too long before we all work for millennials. Surround sound that with, the second thing on my mind is work from home. That's, of course, I believe going to be a permanent part of our reality. While I know a lot of people want to be in the office, I think that it's going to be an optional thing. I think at any given time, I might have maybe 2/3, 50% to 2/3 of folks in the office. And that makes things quite interesting if you consider millennials and the fact that they're motivated by different things and that we're not all in the office together. When you get into kind of commoditized type roles, like for example, lead development and certain sales functions, how you manage that kind of talent in a work from home situation is going to be a fascinating thing that we need to think about. Now, those sound like productivity things, but really those are culture things as well. And for us, as we try and repaint our path from 500 employees to 1,000, we are going to have to be more thoughtful about how our culture stretches into that new goal, because so many things have changed for us. So I don't have a perfect answer, but I suspect through your forum, Marty, that this will become a fairly mainstream part of cultures. How do you maintain scale and growth with a millennial-based workforce that doesn't necessarily care about compensation and numbers the same way we do, and who are working from home? This is going to be a very, very challenging decade, I believe.
I agree. We'll be better for it, but it's going to be challenging, and it's already happening. You talked about working from home and millennials, but what other trends do you foresee coming in building high performance cultures and maintaining?
Well, I guess I don't want to speak too generically. A very big challenge in my category, as I've been in it almost a decade now, is that the smaller players are being gobbled up or they're going out of business. And so as I look into my next few years here, I'm calling it 500 and 500, meaning it'll be 500 employee companies getting together with 500 plus employee companies. So I'd say, the category consolidation that I see in tech and in governance, risk, and compliance in particular is going to be more mid to large size on mid to large size. And then, of course, it's going to put a new kind of pressure on culture, because you're merging big culture on big culture, as compared to, in our more recent past, a bigger culture consuming a smaller culture, which isn't an easy thing to do, but it's surely easier than the big on big. So I suppose I would just kind of put that back add that to the mix of culture soup, called add that with to millennials and work from home, and things will be quite interesting indeed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Now we'll end with one final question, and that is, what piece of advice would you give to someone, a young person potentially today, who's starting out their high performance leadership team culture journey, either on their own as an entrepreneur, in an organization? What kind of, based on your experience, would you share with them?
I'm going to just mention two things, Marty. They're pretty simple, but they really, really matter to me. They're my moral compass. They're my career compass, if you will, for all of the years through today. Number one is be who you are, and don't ever be in a place that doesn't want you to be who you are. You need to be able to be the same person 9 to 5 as you are 5 to 9, And if you're working for someone or you're working for an organization that wants anything else other than that, you should leave. I've had to make that decision a few times in my career. And at the time it was very scary because, oh, I'm never going to get another job and I'm leaving this, but it's always turned out for me. And then the second thing, and I do this one every day with religion, is I call it my Picasso list. It's easy to get overwhelmed with a million things on the to-do list. And I use Trello actually to manage my to-do list. And I actually have a column called my Picasso list. And it's every morning when I come in, I look at all the things I have to do and I put one or two on my Picasso list. I negotiate with myself what are the one or two things that I'm going to do today, the one or two Picassos that I'm going to paint today to my, my best capability so that they're beautiful. And then I'm going to forgive myself everything else, because otherwise life is death by 1,000 cuts. You go to bed, with 80 things in your head, feeling like you did a crappy job on everything. And for me, I swear to God that this Picasso list idea really helps me focus. And, so it would be the second piece of advice that I would give.
That is awesome. Well, Laurie, thank you. I have not heard of a Picasso list, and I've heard of a lot of things. I was writing and listening very attentively to that. And I think you've shared a number of nuggets with us today. I mean, as simple as it sounds, asking people what they think and then internalizing it and responding in whatever way you need to, which is what leaders do. The importance of symbols. We don't hear a lot about symbols. And I've been to the office. I've seen the superheroes and I've seen the moose, and we can talk about the superheroes today. But I think this complexity of millennials working from home, how do we lead? We've gotten into the leadership business as a result of that, the leadership training business. And it is not simple. It takes great commitment, understanding, meaning, impact, and the importance of those things, as you so aptly said. But being who you are, authenticity and Laurie Schultz are go together, I think. And I think that that being who you are 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 is something I won't forget, as well as the Picasso list. So thank you again, Laurie, for joining us today. I know you've done many, many great things, but I actually believe there's going to be even more and bigger things ahead for Galvanize and for Laurie Schultz.
Well, thank you for making time for me, and I'll look forward to seeing you hopefully in person sometime soon.
That would be great. And join us next week for another episode of Building High Performance Cultures. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about the topic, go to waterstonehc.com. Thank you.